Now let me introduce Susan Larkin. Since 2008, Susan Larkin has staffed the Inclusion Collaborative Warm Line, a call email service that supports parents, teachers, and the community in inclusion and finding disability resources. Through the Inclusion Collaborative, Susan has also taught classes on disability awareness, adaptations, behavior, calm down strategies, sensory supports, social stories, inclusive science and math, and parenting. Wow, she's got a full bag. She has created over 100 social stories and visual supports for children and teens. Susan has two children, one with ADHD who is in college, and one with dwarfism who is in high school. In her free time, Susan leads a Girl Scout troop for high school students. Before working at the Inclusion Collaborative, Susan taught college in the US, China, and Taiwan. Welcome, Susan, and thank you for joining us today.
Well, it's great to be here. I always like doing these presentations for PHP because they always have a great audience and they're so fun to work with. So today we're talking about positive behavior supports through building relationships and identifying feelings. And if you want a copy of the slide deck that we're using today, you can go to this bit.ly URL, which is on the slide. I've also listed it in the chat. So if you go into the chat box and click on the bit.ly, it will take you right to the slide deck and you can follow along with me or just download the copy for yourself. All right, again, so I'm Susan Larkin and my email is susan_larkin@sccoe.org. I'm part of the Warmline support. Feel free to give me to shoot me an email anytime you're having, you want information about disabilities or you're having some challenging behavior with a particular student. My job is actually to answer those questions and to discuss those strategies with you. So I'd love, with you and with parents. So I'd love to do that with you. So feel free to, again, give me an email. All right, I see. And I work with the Inclusion Collaborative and we like to welcome all children. We believe that inclusion is not only about proximity, about being near other people, but you really have to intentionally plan for success for all students. So the Inclusion Collaborative, we have a mission and a vision that we want to embrace diversity and support lifelong inclusion, quality inclusion with inclusive practices. This year, we have a special focus for promoting equity. And we offer a variety of services, including coaching, technical assistance, professional development, and for today, and we also have a web page with a Facebook page and a Pinterest page and a YouTube channel. So feel free to look at our web page to see some of the other things that we do. And I work for the Warm Line. So the Warm Line supports parents and educators and professionals in community resources for disability information, for behavior strategies, lots of social stories. Judy told you we have over 100 social stories. I think by now we have over 200 social stories on a variety of topics, including Thanksgiving, which is coming up, and wearing a mask when you're in the public. We will be writing one also for, celebrating holidays during COVID. It's a really challenging time. So please feel free to give us a call or an email and to share these flyers. And if you do download these, the bit.ly, the slide deck, each one of these flyers you can click on and it will take you to the flyer in English and Spanish and Vietnamese. So we can really help support people in all three languages and Chinese. I do some in Chinese as well. Although my Chinese is mama hoo hoo, I can say it's okay, not great, but we can muddle through it. All right, another thing that the County Office of Education is doing that I don't know if you're aware of is we have just started the portal for childcare. So it's the county's resource and referral agency. It's taking over for 4Cs. It's free to register as a provider. You can email ccportal@sccoe.org to get on that registry. And we send a lot of parents to the portal when they're looking for childcare providers. So it would be a great place to register your program. And if you want to be included on the list of providers who include children with special needs, please email me and we can get you started on that as well. So we always like to start with our expectations. Oh, I can feel my bun is falling out, so I'm going to take it out now. Let my hair down. I'd like to start with our expectations. We are safe and healthy. So please make yourself comfortable. If you need to take a break, feel free to. If you need to move around, this is one of the great things about Zoom. You can take your computer with you. Although if you're going, as we all know, if you're going to the bathroom, be sure and turn off your sound and your video because we don't want to see it. We're respectful. We want to be attentive listeners. And if possible, please turn off or silence your cell phone. And we're friendly. So when we're adding things to the chat, or if you want to ask a question, feel free to do so. And we will all listen respectfully and attentively. And we're all going to stay on topic and really appreciate each other and be friendly. So our objectives today are to increase positive behavior through building our relationships with children. And how are we going to do this? Well, there are 6 ways. So remember the 6 ways we're going to do this: through understanding the child, reframing challenging behavior, making the child feel special, using positive descriptive acknowledgements, which we'll discuss later, we'll define later, creating visual expectations and schedules, and enhancing emotional literacy. So if we reflect on children, what are the characteristics that you want children to have when they're in their mid-20s? And what do they need to do to get there? I always love these pictures of children when they're little and then recreating them when they're big, because they have a lot of actions when they're little that we think are cute that we would not put up with when they're in their 20s. So what do we need to do to get there? We want to consider that today. So what I want you to do is to think of a child that you've been working with or that you've worked with in the past that you know will do well in kindergarten or in elementary school. What are the social, emotional, and characteristics that he or she has that will help them do well in kindergarten and in elementary school? So if you could write those in the chat, I'm going to give you about 30 seconds and turn on the little clock here. So please write in the chat what you think they need to do well in kindergarten. All right, I see we got friendly. Definitely important for children to be friendly. Secure attachment with parents, that's great. Respectful, it really helps if children have learned respect. Have good self-esteem, absolutely. Confidence, social emotional skills, taking turns, curiosity, yeah, these are all great. Positive play social skills, these are great. Social emotional, really important for kids to do well in kindergarten. You know, a lot of times I hear parents say, you know, I just need a preschool or a childcare provider who will teach my child how to read. And they don't think about those social skills that are really necessary to do well. And I know teachers of kindergarten teachers have said what we really need is for kids to be able to follow directions, to express themselves, to have those social emotional skills. There are some great things in here in the chat. So I hope you all review all the things that you've said that children need to succeed. And hopefully the children you're working with have had and do have. All right, so, whoops. What do we need to have a social emotional development, have positive social emotional development? What does that look like? So you're right, a lot of you mentioned having confidence and competence, developing relationships with peers and adults. Some of you mentioned with their parents as well as with other adults. Persist in tasks. That's so important for children to have enough confidence and competence and social emotional regulation that they can continue a task that's really hard. Follow directions, understand their emotions and communicate those. A lot of you mentioned those in the chat. Managing those strong emotions when they have strong emotions, and developing empathy. So those are all really important for children to succeed. And you all mentioned many of those. So in order for kids to do that, they need to have a positive relationship with their caregivers. And we know, according to research, that a child's close relationship with their preschool teacher or their child care provider is very important in their development for school readiness. I'm trying to monitor the chat there to make sure that if you have any questions, add them to the chat, or feel free to unmute yourself and ask them as we're going through as well, in case I missed some of them. So when children have close relationships with their preschool teacher, with their child care provider, it predicts how well they'll do in elementary school. So that's really important. A cultural background is another important thing that Sandra mentions, that we really do want children to have, that, that empathy with and understanding of cultural backgrounds. All right, so again, those 6 steps for helping to develop positive relationships are understanding the child, reframing challenging behavior, making the child feel special, using positive descriptive acknowledgements, which I'm going to shorten to PDAs, creating visual supports, and the supports we're going to look at today are visual expectations and visual schedules, and then enhancing that emotional literacy that many of you have mentioned in the chat. All right, so understanding the child. The first thing we need to consider when we think about a child's behavior is biology. If a child has a disability, we can't change that. And I've talked with many parents, and some child care providers will say, I just want, but this child is so active, or this child has ADHD, and I just want to change that. And you can't. If it's a child's disability, you cannot change it. We have to work on ourselves and how we can help that child work with their disability. Another thing that is biology is temperament. How easygoing, how sensitive, how slow to warm up. That's all in a child's biology, and it's something we have to learn to work with and help teach the child to work with. We cannot change that child's temperament. So what are some of the temperament traits that children have and adults have? We all have temperaments. So activity level, how active or still a child is. That biological rhythm that predicts hunger and sleep and elimination, we can't really change that. How easy they are to respond to new situations. How reactive their mood is. Are they positive? Do they react to new situations positively? Or are they fussy? Do they have serious moods? Do they tend to have serious moods? The intensity of their reaction. Do they tend to be a child who reacts with very strong emotions, or with just calmer emotions? How they react to sensory input, their comfort level with sound, with lights, with loud noises, with the feeling of clothing. We've all had children who, can't stand the tags on the back of their clothing. How they deal with new tastes if they're tasting something, and somebody says they know a child like this, how adaptable are they to managing transitions or changes? How distractible they are. That's my daughter, just like Dory, the fish in Finding Nemo. She just gets distracted by anything bright. How persistent they are. Can they persist when there's an activity that they feel that is difficult? All right, so let's look at this example of how different way children react to the Jack-in-the-Box. And it really predicts how it indicates how they react to new situations or to surprises, their approach and withdrawal. And if you can't hear, let me know. And if you download the slides, you can go on to that YouTube video and see even more ways that people react to that Jack-in-the-Box. So what, in the chat, why don't you write down some of the things you saw in the way children approached or withdrew from this new experience? What did you see in their ability to withstand that new experience or that sudden jump? Terrified and anger? Did you notice how a lot of surprise, scared, refusing to try? I love that one, yeah. But how about that kid at the end? That kid at the end was surprised, but also thrilled. Angry, fear, delayed reaction. Yeah, so we noticed that each one of those children has a different response to that Jack-in-the-Box, even those who really enjoyed it. Okay, so we all have different temperaments, and because of that, we also have temperament clashes. Now, we definitely recognize the temperament clashes between children, between that reactive child and the child who doesn't like sensory needs, but we also have to remember that that's true. Whoops, I don't need a snip. That's true for adults too. So there are clashes between children with their different temperaments, and there are also differences with children and adults and how, because of their temperaments. Because of that, because we know that we all have different temperaments, it's important to reframe. It's important to take a moment and reframe our response to a child's behavior. So we want to turn a child's behavior and temperament into something positive. How can we take this behavior and make it into a strength? We can ask these questions. How can we take this behavior and make it into a strength? What might the child be trying to communicate? What does the child's behavior trying to tell us? Now, it's important for those last two questions to remember that all behavior is a form of communication. So when a child is driving you crazy with his behavior or her behavior, remember that that child is communicating something. Attention, someone said, yes, sometimes that behavior is to get attention. What's the child's perspective? And then what do I know about myself that can help? So let's look at, we have a reframing activity next. So I'll give you some example. For examples, this child is a monster. Maybe you haven't said this, but maybe you've thought this. This child is a monster. It's getting ridiculous. He'll never change. Darlene, you've asked how to get a copy of the slides. If you go up to the top of the chat, you can click on the bit.ly link. So this child's a monster. How can we reframe this? So maybe this child is testing where the limits are. Or she never sits in circle time. I can't deal with these behaviors. We can reframe that to she really likes to move as she learns and to learn to accept that. That was always a challenge for me. So why do we reframe? We do this because feelings affect thinking, and thinking affects action, and action affects our relationships. So we really need to take a moment when we've got some challenging behavior and reframe that. Yes, and Clarissa says adults should understand their own temperaments. Absolutely, because we do have those we have temperaments, and we can clash with a child's temperament, and we need to realize that the child's behavior is trying to communicate something. All right, So again, here are some other reframings that we can do. So a child who's loud, we might reframe that into a positive or neutral term, that the child's being enthusiastic. Aggressive, well, that's a child being assertive. Stubborn is persistent. Isn't that great? Oh, this child is so stubborn. But persistence is something that we really want children to have. Trouble with transitions, that the child likes to complete work. And that's a real positive thing. So here's some other examples before I send you off to do your own. More explanations. Okay, so maybe this will explain some more. So if a he whines, that's a problem. This child's whining all the time. It's driving me crazy. He whines from the moment he gets here until he gets home. So we can reframe that by saying a possible response. He must miss his family. She is clingy with her mother and other adults. We can reframe that with, she might be slow to warm up. I have to watch him like a hawk or he'll run out the gates. I'm sure everybody's had this child at some point. He may not understand my expectations, or he's very active. She constantly knocks over children's construction and destroys other children's artworks. We can reframe as, she might be wanting to join in the play and doesn't know how to ask or doesn't know how to enter into the play, or she might not know how to play with these things and feel frustrated. So if you have downloaded the slides already, you can click on this little reframing button, which will take you to a Google Doc. Why am I not signed in? Oh my, let's see. It should take you to, let's see if I can get signed in. It should take you to this reframing activity, and it should be shared. Oh, this says I didn't share it. Let me make sure that it's shared with everybody. I don't know if other people have had these challenges, but you should be able to open this now. So if you would take a minute to think about a child that you have been working with and that is challenging, that has a challenging behavior, and think about how you'll reframe that. And if you take a minute, you can write down a few children if you want, and I'll start that now. And then we'll come back and discuss what child you're working with and what those behaviors are. And if you don't have access to the slides, you can just write it on a piece of paper or on your computer yourself. What's the problem statement? And then how are you going to reframe that? Okay, our minute is up. I like to use a little timer on my slides so that it will remind me how much time I have. Does anyone want to share in the chat what they wrote? What were your problem behaviors? And what are some ways that you've reframed them? Well, I sense some reluctance to write that in the chat, which is understandable, but it's really important to be able to reframe those challenging behaviors into that positive statement, because again, that thinking will eventually affect your relationship. And once we can step out of that problem statement and do a reframed statement, we can then start working on some strategies to help that student. So we've got a couple here. Hates school every time he goes to school in the morning. It's groaning and moaning. Oh yeah, absolutely. So reframing that to maybe something like, they really like their parents, they must really like their home, maybe needs to understand the expectations or the schedule for the day. Very impatient. Oh, they're very excited to continue to the next thing. That's great. Oh, and I liked it's the groaning and moaning before he starts the day. Yes, he just has to go through that process before he starts the day, and then he's fine. That's great. Hard time transitioning, so reframing it to he likes to finish his work. Yeah. And then working on some strategies to help him with those transitions. He doesn't feel well. Yeah. Child's yelling, he enjoys using his voice. Yeah, absolutely. I like that. Children born with different traits, the provider needs to accept that. That's true. We all do. We all need to accept that and move on. Screaming and yelling and throwing temper tantrums. He doesn't know how to verbally express himself yet. Absolutely. He doesn't know how to say, I'm sad, I'm tired, I'm hungry. Absolutely. Those are all great. Behavior hitting. He doesn't know how to tell his friends what he wants or introduce himself to his friends. Yeah, absolutely. Those are great. He gets frustrated when he doesn't get called on. He likes to participate. Absolutely. He likes to participate. She's so moody. There may be something bothering her. Absolutely. That's great. So you guys have this down. You know how to reframe, and that's so important when we have some challenging behaviors. All right. So once we've reframed, we need to build that relationship by making a child feel special. So it's easy to make children that have similar traits to ours or similar temperaments to ours. It's easy to make them feel special, but we want to make every child feel special. The psychologist who helped start Head Start said every child needs one person who's crazy about him, makes him feel special. So in the chat room, I'd like you to think about who made you feel special. What made you think of this person, or what did they do that made you feel important? So think about one person. It could be a parent or it could be a teacher who made you feel important, and what did they do that made you feel that way? Okay, we've got a teacher. We've got some great things here. Somebody hugged me. A teacher who told me I was good at writing. Absolutely. They helped me when I question. For me, I had a scout leader who treated me like a leader, and it really led me to, I would say it helped me get my Ph.D., just having a scout leader. English teacher made me feel special because she listened. And mom gives positive affirmations. Those are great. So when you think about that person, how does it make you feel right now? For me, it makes me feel warm and fuzzy and really happy inside. So everyone needs that kind of person. So how do we let children know that we're crazy about them? Well, we spend time with them, we believe in them, we listen and talk to them, and we play together. All of those are really important for letting children know that we're crazy about them. And I'd like you to watch this child-adult conversation, and in the chat, write about some of the positive things that this teacher does in developing her relationship with this child.
I was thinking we could have a drama party or a slumber party.
Oh, that sounds like fun. I used to have those when I was little.
Wow.
Pajama parties.
You?
Yeah, we'd have pizza and stuff, you know.
We used to have pizza. I had pizza at the center.
At the center?
Yep.
Is it from the pizza place or does the lady make it?
The lady make it. We would watch the SpongeBob movie.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I didn't see that. How is it?
Great. It's
Yeah.
brilliant.
Can you tell me about the story? Because I don't know anything about it, because I don't have little kids at home to watch this stuff. So you all have to tell me what's going on.
Well, I'll tell you about the stuff eating.
Okay, go
and
ahead.
Toys.
What happened?
They are copying you by the house area and the block area and the computer and the writing area and the painting area and
We don't have art now, remember? That's our studio. Is that the after-school place you go to?
yeah, and they got sand
But
and they copy the doors we got
whose is better, this class or the after-school?
this class.
Why?
Because I like it when Janelle was there and Rita and Miss Ellie.
Okay.
and Miss Elizabeth.
So what do you do there? What do you do there?
Well, I can tell you the stuff they got.
What do they got?
They got red, blue, green, and some more planks and bowls.
Yeah?
The same cups.
Yeah. Oh, so they don't use paper when they eat? They have regular cups and stuff? Yeah.
For the house area.
Oh, they have the same ones as us?
Yup. And they copying you with everything. And the other one, computer work, and the other computer work.
Well, that one computers. We're going to try to get it fixed. I'm going to ask, okay? Because it's hard to wait your turn, huh? Who's over there on the rug? That Miss Bella?
Miss Bella and Miss Elizabeth.
Oh. So, but you have a good time there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think, I don't think they're really copying us. I think they know what children like to play with. So they have the same stuff. What's your favorite thing there?
I'll tell you what's my favorite toy.
What's your favorite toy?
Play-Doh with my teacher, Miss Ellie.
Oh, what about the after school?
Yeah, you guys have written some great things in the chat. Eye contact, asking questions, the attention of the teacher. There's establishing common interests, following the student's lead. So when the teacher asks a question and that's not what the student wants to answer, she follows what the child wants to answer. She acknowledges the child, really engaged in her play, and gives her full attention, shows interest, uses friendly gestures. Yeah, really paying attention. Everyone's mentioning that. She really pays attention. And she also lets the child lead. So when the child says she watched the SpongeBob movie, the teacher says, "Oh, can you tell me about that? I don't know about that." So she lets the child be the teacher at that point. Validates her feelings. The teacher has great expressions. Yeah, she absolutely does. So she really, you can tell in this video, she really makes the child feel important. And that's so important for us when we're developing a positive relationship. If we can develop a positive relationship with a child, then trying to work with their challenging behaviors is so much easier. So we do that by filling their emotional bucket, by creating things together, by, I love this one, acknowledging positive behavior in front of others. So if you have a child who sometimes has challenging behavior, but it does something really well, telling the parent about it while the child is right there really doubles that that deposit into that emotional bucket, because the child's really getting praise from PDAs from you and from the parent, by the parent listening. Paying attention, giving a child our full attention when they need it. Being silly. So we saw that with this teacher as well. When the child was rattling off all the people she likes in the program and she hadn't mentioned the teacher's name yet. The teacher was kind of silly and pointing to herself. So being silly, they love it when we're silly. Having a special note to a teacher, to a child, listening, reading, and of course, playing together. Those are so important in developing those positive relationships. And only if we have a positive relationship can we really work with a child in changing some of their challenging behavior, working with their challenging behavior. So we've mentioned positive descriptive acknowledgements, or PDAs, and that's one of the deposits that we can put in a child's emotional bank. So what is that? So a PDA is catching a child having positive behavior and describing it, telling the child what they're doing right. For example, if we look at this little girl and we want to give her positive descriptive acknowledgements, we think she's doing something really right. If we go over to her and say, "Good job," what is this child going to think? Good job at what? Good job at building with the blocks, good job at standing up, good job at playing alone. What is it? What is the specific thing that she's doing well? So we want to describe that behavior instead of saying good job. So ban good job from your vocabulary, which is super hard. So we might say, wow, you're being so careful keeping all the pieces on the table. We want her to be careful. So we're describing what she's doing and what's that positive behavior. So what's the difference between positive behavior and praise? Well, praise is generic, good job or nice. It doesn't give the child any specific information. What's nice? What's good? There's no information about the child's skill, whereas a PDA narrates the specific action. You walked to the block area. That's safe. So from that, a child knows what they're doing right, and they also get specific information about their skill. I can walk and be safe. Praise sometimes promotes external motivation. So I like the way you do something. Really emphasizes the adult's attention, the adult's judgment on the child's behavior. So from that, the child will internalize, I'm a good job, or I must please the teacher, I must please the adult. We want children to have positive behavior through their internal motivation. So I am a friendly person. I share my toys because I am a friendly person, or I can walk carefully when I'm carrying and drinking water. So we really want to emphasize the PDAs, the description of the action that we appreciate, instead of praise, instead of good job or nice. So, write those words down and write a big red X through them. We don't want to use those again. So PDAs, again, they support the child's confidence and confidence. They can help change a child's behavior because you catch the child and give attention to the child when they're behaving, when they're doing positive behavior, when they're doing something well. I love this ketchup jar, gotcha being good. That's a good way of reminding an adult that, oh yeah, we need to acknowledge the child's positive behavior. But the thing I like about this jar is there's nothing in it. Why? There's absolutely nothing in this jar. They didn't catch the child being good at anything. And why is that? Because it's so easy to ignore children when they're behaving well. They're behaving well, everybody's playing well, so I can get the dishes done. I can start arranging the next activity. I can chat with the other teacher in the classroom. It's super hard to remember to give those positive descriptive acknowledgements. So here are the tips. You want to get the child's attention. So if you tell the child that you really like the way they're walking in the classroom, but the child doesn't see you, that doesn't do anything. Say what you see, describe that appropriate action. You're using walking feet. You gave Jose some of your blocks. Be specific. So you were nice to Kendra. No, that doesn't tell us anything. What did you do that was nice? And what do you mean by nice? When you gave Kendra the toy, that was very friendly. So that's a lot more specific. And this one I really have problems with in my own household, avoiding combining encouragement with criticism. Wow, you walked to the block area today, not like yesterday. So that's criticism and encouragement together. And when you combine the two, it takes that encouragement away. And for me, so I have a child who sometimes doesn't do his homework on time. So it's very hard for me to not say, wow, you got your homework turned in on time today, not like yesterday, which takes that praise away. So take back that criticism. Don't say that criticism, only say that positive statement. Wow, you got your homework turned in today. Something I have to remember, because that's one that is hard for me. We want to encourage with enthusiasm. When COVID is over, doubling that impact with physical warmth. So we're not touching people as much anymore. But I just talked to a childcare provider yesterday who said she likes to give imaginary glitter to her students. So when her students are behaving properly, she then gives them imaginary glitter over their heads or sends them imaginary glitter. We can also send them imaginary kisses to double that impact. And making that positive comment in front of the child's parents or in front of others children can be really, really impact that child. So because it is so hard to remember to give PDAs, especially to those children who have really challenging behavior, and you think this child never does the right thing. They do at some point, but we need to catch them at it. So I always encourage people to use an encouragement log. So again, if you click on that link, and I will also send you in the chat, I will also send you the link. I should have done that last time. We have a list. So what I like to do when I'm working with a child who has some challenging behavior is write everything down. So list the challenging behavior. What is the behavior that's a problem in this class or in childcare? So maybe it's this child is hitting. So instead of focusing on the hitting, what is the behavior I want to happen? So if I've got a child who's hitting, wow, this child is really hitting, what's a behavior that that I want the child to do instead of hitting? So maybe if the child's hitting, I want the child to ask. So then I list all the positive comments, all the PDAs that I could use when I see the child behaving as I want them to. So when I see the child asking another child for a toy, asking to join in, asking for space, I want to have those positive comments ready. So I like to have them written down, and then I like to post them someplace to remind me of those comments, to stop me from saying, good job, but instead say, wow, you asked Anthony if you could join in his play, or wow, you asked Kendra to step back when you thought she was too close. So having making those challenging behavior into a desirable behavior, and then listing those comments that you can give to the child whenever you catch that child doing well. And I'm going to give you another minute there to think about a child you're working with that you can list the challenging behavior. And I usually tell people to work on one challenging behavior at a time, because sometimes a child's has many challenging behaviors, overwhelming. So one at a time. Explain how he needs to use positive hands. Explain how he needs to use his hands in positive ways. Use pictures too. Yeah, absolutely. So go into that document, and for a minute, again, another minute, think about a challenging behavior from one child. What's the positive action or the positive behavior, and then what kind of PDAs you can give when you catch that child having those positive behaviors. So I'll give you a minute there to go through that. And if you can't get into the document, just list challenging behavior? What's the positive behavior, the opposite of that, the positive behavior you expect instead of that challenging behavior? And what are some PDAs you can give to that child when you catch that child doing that positive behavior? Excuse me. Does anyone want to share some of their, what they've done for the encouragement log, what this challenging behavior is and what the behavior is, and what the, what some PDAs might be? Anyone want to share that in the chat? If there's one thing I'd like you to take from this, from our discussion today, it's this: changing that negative behavior. What are the positive behaviors the child can do instead? And what are the positive descriptive acknowledgements you can give to that child when you catch that child behaving appropriately? Having those written down is really important. And I see, okay. Positive, okay, so here's one. Challenging behavior is distracting others. So focusing on the desirable behaviors, focusing on works. Jay is working very hard on his paper, absolutely. For hitting, you're keeping your hands to yourself. So for hitting, I really want you to think about what's the positive behavior from that. So instead of hitting, what can he do? So he can keep his hands to himself, but what is that communicating? Is it that he wants that child's toy? So what other things can he do instead? Or he wants to join in play? Because I have seen this where a child wants to join in the play and doesn't know how to, so he hits a child. So instead we want them to use their voice, to use their words, or to figure out another solution for if you want to trade toys or share or join in. Those are really important to have that. What's the child trying to communicate with that action of hitting? Having a bad mood, but I really like it. So remember with the, I really like it when you smile, it makes you look happy. We don't want the child, we don't want to reference ourselves. So we don't want to say, I really like, because we don't want the child to think about what, to only have a positive behavior because it's what the teacher wants, what I want. So a negative attitude, we want them to smile, we want them to listen, to be patient, maybe be patient and figure out, and to try something new. So I really like, so instead of I really like it when you smile, it makes you look happy, just describing that. So try to eliminate the I really like so that the child's not doing the action because it's what the teacher wants. You're using words to ask for a toy instead of yelling. Thank you for using soft words when you talk to me. Absolutely. Your friend felt happy when you use gentle hands. Yeah, using gentle hands. Throwing his toys, keep the toys on the table. I really like how you kept the toys on the table. You're really playing with those toys well. You're so respectful. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so a couple of you have said you couldn't log into the document, so I will accept your requests because we're just about ready to move on. All right, so keeping that encouragement log is really useful. I hope that's something you're able to do. The other thing that we want to do is to create visual expectations and schedules. And that those expectations can really be paired with those PDAs. And I think what we're going to do now, Judy said we should take a break at 11, and it is close to 11, and a lot of you want access to the document, which somehow I didn't let everyone have access to. So we'll take a 5-minute break here, and then we'll talk about creating visual expectations and schedules, and everyone can access that document. So go ahead and take a 5-minute break, and we'll come back in 5 minutes. And I'll set my timer to 5 minutes. Go get yourself something to drink, or do what you need to do. So take a moment to stretch and move.